Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, co-editor-in-chief of Retail Insider. My guest today is Terry Thrower, who is National Manager, Franchise Banking at TD. Thanks for joining us today, Terry.
Good to be with you, Mario.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a recent survey by TD, which found that 27% of Canadians who were surveyed say the economy, the uncertainty in the economy is, preventing them from starting a business, and 24% are not comfortable with the financial risk involved. Yet, there is an option, and that's the franchise way. And can you talk about what you're seeing out there? Are more Canadians looking at franchises as a way to entrepreneurship?
Yes, absolutely. It's funny, 'cause despite kind of a challenging macroeconomic environment, we're having a record year in terms of
Wow.
our actual loan volume. So I've been in this role for 11 years now, and this is the best year we've ever had. So the essence of franchising is the business model that you're thinking of investing in is proven and replicable. So I think in a challenging economic environment, franchising resonates with Canadians even more than, an independent business by comparison.
Yeah. And I think, the franchising itself, most people think, of, fast food places, right? And all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But the vast amount of and different areas that someone could be in a franchise is it keeps growing, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Actually, 60% of franchises in Canada are non-food related.
Wow.
So it really is amazing how franchising has gotten into every industry. And, you look at retail, restaurants, health and wellness, fitness, automotive repair and collision repair.
Hmm.
And I say this to my colleagues sometimes, if you think about your average day, think about how many franchises you actually went to in a given day. So if you filled up your car with gas, if you grabbed a coffee, if you took your dry cleaning in,
Yeah,
I mean, if you went grocery shopping, I mean, you name it, you probably visit a franchise more than a couple times in any given week.
that's interesting.
If
Yeah.
you own a pet, covers all industries and now education, health. We've got parents that want to help their kids get ahead. So they're, doing secondary learning through an education franchise. I mean, it just goes on across all industries.
You seeing in terms of the types of individuals that are coming in looking to be franchise owners? Is there a common thread there of their stories?
Yeah, very much so. So, I would say our typical customer is typically, or somebody looking for financing for a franchise. There's usually two people and, partners, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, and then one of them has a dream of owning their own business. And, they typically, if it's a franchise, it's a brand that they've been a customer of and they love it. They have a particular passion for that specific brand. The other partner's probably just going to keep, their existing job. And it's a, it can create different levels of anxiety. There's kind of a couple anxiety where one of them's going to be changing their career.
Yeah.
There's can I get the financing? That creates a little bit of anxiety. And then just the stress of one of them changing their career. So, the goal of us is to try and give them advice to reduce their anxiety level. And when you have a relationship with the brand they're looking at, that can really help because you bring a lot of expertise to your customer.
Yep. Do you think that that anxiety level is lowered a bit through through the franchise model, and depending on
Yeah,
certain companies, obviously, but because there's more support there for them.
absolutely. Uh, we like to work with brands who obviously provide ongoing support and assistance to their franchisees. And one of the things you can't pick up in financial statements is the culture of a franchise brand.
Yeah.
And good brands, what they're really good at is providing assistance. They obviously have a business model it's proven and it's replicable, but what kind of ongoing support do they provide to their franchisees? You know, what are you paying your franchise fee for? We like to deal with brands that provide assistance on like three key things. One of them is location. You've heard this expression, location, location, location. Huge, no matter what business you're in, generally speaking. I've seen strong brands have not so good locations that don't do well, and even weak brands that have great locations and can do well in a good location. So location is huge, and good franchise brands know how to identify good locations. We also like it when they help their franchisees negotiating a lease. Good brands know what um, one of their franchisee businesses can afford to pay in rent. And this is one of the biggest expenses you're going to have,
Mhm.
generally speaking, across all industries. So you need that expertise and oversight to help you not only just find the site, but also negotiate the lease with the landlord. And then lastly is construction. Construction can be risky, especially if you have no experience in it. You can run into challenges with cost overruns. Good franchise brands have relationships with general contractors and they can accurately estimate what it's going to cost you to open your doors.
Yeah.
So those are three big factors that good franchise brands provide to their franchisees.
Yeah. For an individual or a couple that's going into this or want to go into this, how can they tell if they're financially ready to take the leap?
Yeah. So good question. Very common question too. There's a lot of variability, not only in the industry you're thinking of getting into, but with the specific franchise brand. And the one thing I would always encourage, people that are considering investing in a franchise, your listeners, um, the amount of money you have isn't always the biggest element in terms of a franchise or qualifying you. They're more interested in your transferable skills. What are you bringing to our brand? Do you have a passion for the brand? So a lot of our customers, when they're buying a franchise, they're doing it because they were a customer of that specific brand and they loved it. So, what's your passion for the brand? What transferable skills can you bring to the brand? And it isn't necessarily experience in that specific industry or with that specific brand, because good franchise brands have extensive training programs where they're going to train you on how to run this franchise. So you really have to, if you're going to invest in a brand, you really need to connect with the specific respective franchise brand and see how much um, you know capital you need to invest with that brand. A lot of people will be pleasantly surprised. Yes, there's brands that sure you do need a significant amount of capital, but there's also a lot of brands that you don't. And that's what can surprise people. So it's really critical that they connect with that specific brand that they're looking to invest in.
From a money standpoint, how does one calculate I guess, the viability of a franchise opportunity? What should they be thinking?
Yeah. Yeah. So, in across the provinces, it is challenging for franchisors. They can't really make representations and warranties as to how much money you're going to make. But, there's key critical questions when you're doing your due diligence that you can ask franchise brands.
Hmm.
What are your average unit volumes across your chain? That's information they can share, you know. For a good operator, what would cost of goods sold normally be? For a good operator, what would your labor expenses normally be? And then, you know, where should my rent be as a percentage of my revenue? So even though they're not going to come out and specifically say, hey, you should make, you know, $300,000 in your first year, you can kind of come to some conclusions by, you know, asking them those specific questions. What are your average sales? You know, what should my margins be if I'm a good operator? The other thing that is really critical is, you know, that person that's looking to invest, engage with your banker early in the conversation because they may have a relationship with that specific franchise brand. They may have done, you know, a dozen financing for that specific brand. So they can really help you with the advice piece in terms of, you know, they can't write your business plan for you, but they can certainly provide commentary on your projections and with the goal of giving you the right advice.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thanks so much,
Yeah.
Terry, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mario. Really appreciate it.
Okay, that was Terry Thrower, National Manager, Franchise Banking at TD. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor, co-editor in chief of Retail Insider. Thanks for joining us today.